Hello, I'm Ross Collette, and I'm having a great day. Today I'm joined by Jimmy Vickers. Jimmy was the original tent man for AAAllen that set up that great gospel tent. And he's come by here today, and we're just going to talk to him for a few minutes and let him tell us some of the things that he enjoyed doing and what kind of a blessing it was to work for AAAllen. Jimmy, when did you meet Brother Allen?
1952 in Durham, North Carolina. He came to a little church downtown on Main Street. It was an independent church. It didn't belong to any organization. And they were having a revival there, and I went. I wasn't saved at that time, but I did go. I was doing construction work, helping building barracks down in Fayetteville, North Carolina for the Army barracks. But it was quite a revival, and he came back, and I joined him, and they didn't have a tent at that time. He came back with a tent, small tent, probably around 50 by 100, something like that, a tent that size. Probably seated 100 people, a couple hundred people, and he was a traveling evangelist. So I don't know how long he had been in the ministry, because I didn't get all the information till he got there. But I joined him, and we traveled the country till he died, and it was like in 1970 when he died. And when I first started, I was just a worker. I had been doing construction work, so it was like I was used to the outdoors, doing that kind of work in the hot sun. But the tents actually started growing larger and larger because his ministry was growing.
You would buy bigger tents?
Yeah, we would buy bigger tents, every few years, and add more trucks and more equipment. When I joined him, he had 3 small semi-trailers. One of them, what we call single axle trailers, because we wasn't carrying that much weight. But as time went along and we had to buy more tents, larger tents, we had to have more trucks as we went through time. But it was interesting working with him, and quite a man of God. It's like you could never told me, if I talked to you now and you told me that I was going to be working with a man of God, I'd have kind of laughed at you, because I wasn't a Christian till he came, and God saved me, and I joined the crew. And it's like, I don't know how to explain a man of God like that. Through the ministry he had, it was just something that drew you to him. It wasn't the show or anything like that. It was just something that drew you to him. And you understand you're saved then, and you're drawn to him to work for him and do anything you can to help people, because that was his ministry, to help do anything he could do to help people. And so you're drawn to him, and that's what you do. Just like in the Bible, the disciples, were drawn to Christ through the Spirit, and that's what happened to me.
But there were several tents. I remember somebody saying the Jack Coe tent.
That's correct.
And then I don't know where he got that at. I heard about the William Branham tent. Heard about that.
There's no William Branham tent.
No, there wasn't a tent like that?
No.
Was there one of them that was a circus tent?
Well, they all, none of them were built by the people that, Ringling Brothers, which we had our tent. Yes. Yeah, we had our tent built by them, because Brother Allen knew, and I knew that they knew what they were doing. And every time we had I'll go back to Jack Coe's tent. He had a 4-pole tent that was about a third the size of our largest tent that we had eventually got to. But we had a Jack Coe tent, and it was kind of an old tent and pretty rotten.
It was canvas.
Yeah, the old brown canvas, hot and everything. But that's the first large tent that Brother Allen owned, and we had a small prayer tent, 60 by 120, for people to go to and pray during the day, or when he made an altar call, he would send them out to that prayer tent.
Now, I don't want to interrupt you here, but between those poles, how long was the center section in the tent?
On the biggest tent?
Well, no, on the Jack Coe tent. Do you remember?
The Jack Coe tent was like a 30-foot center. They call them 30-foot centers between the center poles. But if you got 4 center poles, then you got
3 times 4.
Well, actually, that tent was 100. Let's see, it was 100 foot wide, It's a big tent, and 200 foot long.
200 foot long.
Yeah. Now, when we measure tents, when I measure tents, it wasn't evangelistically speaking like some preachers. They would measure to the stake lines and all that. When I told you what the size of a tent was, that was canvas wall to canvas wall, which that Jacko tent was 100 by 200.
Well, one of the tents that I remember more than any other was the white and the tangerine
Yeah.
with the orange trim on it.
They called that paprika, I think, was the name of that.
Oh,
it
was
was
that right?
orange. It was orange.
Sorry.
But
How big was that tent?
that tent was 220 wide and
Wow.
440 feet long, canvas to canvas. Then, of course, you had to have more room to put it up for the stake line and center poles that hold the center poles up guy lines. So when I went to get a lot or sent somebody to get a lot, either one, it would not fit on a football field. You could not set that tent on a football field. Counting the end zone.
It had to be bigger.
Yeah, oh yeah. We had to usually we went to fairgrounds and places like that, like here in Detroit, the big state fair thing or whatever. It was like, because you had the size you had to have for the tent and also for the parking and all of that kind of stuff. So what time you get through with all that, you have to have
It's a big size.
a
yeah,
big
right,
size,
right.
a lot of room.
Well, you mentioned the Detroit one. Well, that one, the tent blew down here in Detroit.
That's correct.
Yeah. And everybody moved under the prayer tent.
Right.
I remember it was jam-packed. You couldn't even move under there. And but how big was that? That was the blue tent.
Later
was a
on,
blue,
after
yeah.
the white tent, we had a
Yeah.
blue tent.
Yeah.
And
Aqua.
aqua.
Yeah, I remember the
Aqua.
color.
That's right, aqua.
Now, who did there? I remember famous names. Like there was a Georgia tent and Childress in Texas.
They
and
built the aqua tent.
They built the Aqua Tent.
Yeah, the white tent was built by Ringling Brothers in Sarasota because they had already did away with all their tents and they wasn't building tents. So the Ringling Brothers people, of course, were circus people. They knew how to build a tent. That was the only tent that I remember that we put up that was actually built right.
Yeah.
All the laces lined up perfect. Everything was perfect. And when they saw that tent in Atlanta put up, they'd never seen a tent that large.
Yeah.
Even though they built it, they never put it up. So we had it up the first time in Atlanta, and they came in there, 2 or 3 of them, and when they stood at the very end of the tent and looking long ways, they saw that tent. They stood there and cried like a baby because it was the largest thing they ever seen and the most beautiful tent.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
And they just cried like a baby. They just couldn't believe it.
Wow.
And they couldn't believe all the grounds around there. Of course, we buried all the electric wires and things like that. And they didn't usually do that when they went with their tents. They were only there a day or two. And most of our meetings had grown to 24 a month day services. So we went, and then later on we went back to 12-day meetings later on.
Well, Jim, I want to ask you another thing. We talked about canvas on the Jack Coat tent, but the white tent, it was more than just canvas, wasn't
Vinyl.
it? It was vinyl.
They switched over to vinyl because the canvas, it had the manila ropes sewn to the canvas, and they would deteriorate pretty quickly even when you kept them and babied them like we did. We babied the tent and put it in great big diapers and put it in the truck. And
It looked like diaper bags out there.
that's right, laying out there. So it was like it took 9 diesel trucks to carry this much equipment all across the United States. 9 semi-diesel trucks to carry all the equipment, the chairs, the tent. It took 1 truck just to carry the canvas in. So that ought to tell you
It was big.
it was big.
Well, how many chairs did you carry?
We usually carried about 4,000 or 5,000 chairs.
Wow.
But not only that, see, when you roll the tent curtains up and you got all those chairs in there, and all of these states make you have big wide aisles when you are, which
Yeah.
are a safety feature, in case you had problems. But it's like when you roll the canvas up in the summertime, then you can actually have seating outside of the tent too, and some people would bring their own lawn chairs sometimes.
Yeah, sit out. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. The canvas that, like on the coat tent, it would swell when it got wet, and dry and shrink when it got hot.
You could never get it completely dry, even if when you took it down to store it in the truck to move it. It never got completely dry, so it deteriorated real fast. So especially the rope would go first, and it would break and come apart. So when we got it, it was already a used tent, so it didn't last very long.
Well, on YouTube here, I want to thank you, Brother Jimmy, because when I first came out, the first thing you had me do was you had me climb up on top of the tent and walk up the guy ropes and on the laces and get up there and hang lights on top of those poles.
That's correct.
I thought that was torture. that was the new guy torture. I thought.
You were one of the men that worked with Brother Allen on a platform, and I appreciate that because you were already in the ministry. But he told me that the men that's working around here, when they're not ministering, to the people,
yes,
you can use them to help put the tent up. So I put you to work.
I got to tell you, Jimmy, I felt used when you had me do that.
Well, you only had to go up 57 feet, and then you took a ladder.
I had to have a step ladder up there to lean it up there.
Lean it against the pole, and then the lights went on that. So by the time you got there, you were 60-foot level.
Yeah,
60 foot high.
And it was the hottest part. It was the hottest part of the entire tent was on top of that.
That's correct.
The white one with it. Anyway, I learned how to pray on on top of Brother Allen's tent.
That's right. Exactly.
Now, I don't want to let you get away from here without you telling us about. You and I went together with Brother Allen to the Philippines one year.
That's
maybe more than one.
Right.
But the first time that you came, it had such an effect on you that you've always had a ministry in the Philippines. Tell us about that just a little bit.
The problem was I didn't know what missions was all about. And on Sunday afternoon in every tent meeting, Brother Allen pretty much had missionary services, and what was interesting to me was watching the young people that would come down and dedicate their life to go to mission fields. And believe it or not, I was probably in my heart praying also. And the first time he took me to the Philippines, of course you were there, and it was like something got a hold of me to do that kind of work. And after he died, I, of course, went more times, and I've been 8 times. You helped me go 2 times, and I've been on my own trying to go, but it's like it's just a burden.
I know you love those Filipinos. Your son married one, right?
Yes. She's expecting a baby right now. So
right now?
Yeah, any minute, and I'm up here with you.
Well, Jimmy, not only me, but everybody who views this is going to be praying for you and your ministry.
Right.
And that you'll be blessed. And this is not a sensitive subject to you, but can I ask you, how old a man are you?
I'm 85 years old.
And you're still busy.
Still busy.
Yeah.
Do all I can do. I don't have the energy. We talked about this. I don't have the energy to do what I need to do, but I have the burden. Mm. And
and you have the know-how.
Yeah, you're the one that has the know-how.
But anyway, it's a wonderful ministry, and you've had a wonderful life, and it's still going on. Your ministry's still working.
Yeah.
And we thank God every moment for you, Brother Jimmy Vickers.
Thank you.
And God bless you.
Glad to be with you. Thank you.
Get in touch with us if you would, please. Go to the YouTube channel and rosscollette.com. And if you do that, you can make a comment and tell us what you think. God bless you. We'll talk to you soon.
Bless you.
Bye-bye.